Hey guys, welcome to the Championships podcast where we do all things fantasy football. Today we'll be talking about a couple random topics, about the league in general. So Connor, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Brock?
Not too bad, not too bad. All right, so first question, what do you think the Browns will do with Nick Chubb considering all the guys that they've signed at his position, the running back position?
So they brought in Foreman, I think, on a contract for the upcoming year.
Hmm.
Um, what I'm seeing there is some uncertainty with his knee. So he's going to be, I think, 29 this season. He's had a catastrophic knee injury in college at Georgia before, and he's had another one here again. So what you're dealing with is a late career running back who's definitely got his work over the years, and there's a lot of wear and tear on the tires, and they're just giving themselves some insurance here. Foreman's shown he's serviceable, and he can fit that kind of like ground and pound, short yardage, carry 15 carries a game kind of role. So I think it's just insurance. They might even bring one in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if they go into the season with Ford, Foreman, a rookie, Chubb, and even another vet on the streets, even if they bring back Hunt or something like that.
Mhm. So do you think he stays, or do you think he eventually gets cut to free up some cap space?
I don't know what their cap situation's like. Last time I checked, it was pretty good. So I don't think they have to do too much unless they're trying to bring in another big name free agent for some reason, but there's not too many left on the market. So my
Mhm.
inclination then would be they're going to keep him probably for the year. He may take a pay cut or something like that. So maybe they can extend someone on the team right now and put some of that money towards this year somehow, something like that. But I don't see him being I don't see him parting ways at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I like Chubb a lot. I've always liked him. I mean, kind of hope he still has like some left in the tank. He's obviously not going to be who he was, but I hope he still has some stuff left in the tank so he can at least go out somewhat on top, you know?
Yeah, he's the best natural rusher in the league when he's healthy. So his
Mhm.
vision and his agility to just kind of get out of tackles and stuff like that, even if he doesn't have the same gear he used to, because he's not even the same athlete he was before, which I don't think people realize. He's arguably before his first injury at Georgia a better athlete and a better player prospect than Saquon was.
Mhm. You think in his prime he was like the top guy at his
Yeah, if he was,
position?
I think if he never hurt his knee, he could have set a bunch of records. Remained
Mhm.
healthy his whole career and came in just getting the work he did.
Okay, okay. So then, Calvin Ridley, what is his outlook with his new team, the Tennessee Titans?
So I saw a report on Twitter from something from Callahan saying his intention is to use Ridley in the chase role, which I'm not entirely
Hmm.
sure I fully agree with, but I think he's going to be running a full route tree, which is the big difference. He was running a lot of vertical routes on the Jaguars and then curls, and they didn't really utilize his skill set, which is really being a precise route runner and running a lot of intermediate routes. And I can see that happening with the Titans, especially with D Hop playing the X role and being like that possession vertical threat still and still being very good at it. So he's going to be able, I think, to kind of have a lot of variety, get a lot of targets. Obviously, they're paying him, so they're going to make him a focal point of the offense. I also think this puts Burks in at the slot, which a lot of people have pointed out already, but at least that might give him a chance to succeed at the NFL because he came into a situation with a skill set that didn't align with the role they were trying to put him in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think this is gonna hurt D Hop, or do you think it'll actually help him a little bit because maybe they'll have to watch out for the other guys, and maybe D Hop will be open since he's not gonna be the only focal point?
D Hop still had a good year last year. I think it really depends on Levis, and I don't know what the offense that's going to be laid out really from a pass attempts perspective, but they have five targets now, realistically. Pollard out of the backfield, D Hop, Burks, Ridley, and then they have Chigo Conquo. So, I mean, if you give every guy 50 to 90 receptions, I wouldn't be surprised. It just really
Mm,
depends on how much they want to see Levis throw and really see if they have something in Levis.
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would think that they'd want to do that so then they can either move on from him and get somebody else or say, "Hey, this is our guy."
Right.
Yeah. So, and then next is who are your sleeper teams for this coming year?
I'm thinking the Titans possibly because they have a
Oh,
weaker
okay.
division and they've really put some pieces on the offensive side. So if Levis can play at a average starter level, I think they have a chance. And I see them probably drafting a lot of more defensive pieces and making that defense work, kind of like it has over the last few years. And then obviously the Bears are bringing in a lot of weapons on the offensive side again too to kind of put them around Caleb when they draft him, and hopefully Caleb has a solid season. Their defense was pretty good and has been good, and that team was good last year. The second half of the year, the Bears were a very competitive roster,
Yeah.
so I think both are trending in the right direction. Unfortunately, the Bears have a little bit more work to do because the division's a lot better, in my opinion. But one of them, if they snuck in as a wild card team, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. So then on the flip side of that, do you have any teams that you believe are overrated? Like they're going into this season like really hyped up and you're like, no, I don't think they're that good.
I think the Jets are getting a lot of hype right now, and I think they're signing a lot of injury-prone vets with
Mike
a
Williams.
with an older quarterback. Um, but they have a good defense, but they also lost some pieces there too.
Mhm.
They lost a defensive end, Huff. He's a speed rusher, so he was a good rotation player for them. And I'm curious to see what they do with the draft capital they do have this year. I don't know if they're going to try to get a couple elite pieces or if they're going to maybe move back from where they are in the first and try to get more picks to kind of even out the whole roster. I mean, they have a receiver coming off an ACL tear. Garrett Wilson is a good player, but he's been more hype than performance realistically. But that was probably limited by quarterback, not really his fault. Then you
Mhm.
have the best running back in the league, and then they shored up that offensive line. It's actually in pretty good shape right now, but Tyron Smith may roll an ankle or tear a shoulder tomorrow. So
Yeah. All right. Next question. So what's the deal with Brandon Ayuk? Is he staying this year? Is he going next year? Or what's the deal?
I saw some tweet. I think he said like money talks, bullshit walks, or something like that. He's really good, and I don't know if they're gonna have the money to pay him. So I see him probably moving on unless they cut Debo somehow and take a hit. I'm assuming there's be some kind of cap penalty towards that, or at least some hits in the future. Ideally, I think in this draft, you're looking at a very deep wide receiver class. So could you replace him? Possibly. I mean, he really is an elite talent. He could have the career trajectory of like Stephon Diggs, where he was very good and he showed that. And then he went and became the alpha on a team, and his career really took off for those few years. It's
Yeah.
definitely possible for Ayuk, but if he stayed on the 49ers, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm thinking if they keep Purdy and have to extend him, I don't see them having all these top paid weapons on the offense. It just doesn't seem possible.
Yeah. So you were saying that they might want to cut Debo to keep Ayuk possibly, but I almost feel
I think
like
that's a smart move for
Debo.
them.
I almost think Debo fits their offense better than Ayuk
They use
because they're a big like
Debo.
run after the catch, aren't they?
Yes, but they use Debo in some similar ways as C-Mac, and you could get a athletic run after the catch kind of hybrid specialist player, I guess, like Debo, or just get a player that can play. Debo is a better receiver than he's given credit, so they just play that more of a receiver role and
Mhm.
less carries. It's
Yeah,
I don't think it's that big of a deal. Shanahan's shown the ability to tailor an offense towards what he's got to play with.
gotcha. So do you think they try and trade him this year, Ayuk?
Um, like before the season or in season?
Yes,
What's your
yeah, sorry,
question?
before the season, yeah.
Possibly. I don't know how teams feel though with a lot of these receivers that are possibly in the market because this class is so good.
Yeah, it's pretty deep.
What is the incentive for them to give up severe? prime draft capital for these players that need contract extensions that are in the middle of their career. Yes, they're proven. There's less risk there, but you're giving up the pick and significant amount of cap space to do that.
Yeah. So, do the Patriots land a number one wide receiver at some point before the season?
No, because they don't do anything right. So I'm
Not
thinking
not
though,
even with the new regime under placement and
probably not. I still feel like they're going to have some of that like way where they're not going to overpay for one of these guys. So kind of like I just said, what's the incentive for them to do this? I mean, they prevent hypothetically a bust, but Patriots have pick 3. Now, if they traded back, collected more picks, and then had like pick 11 or something like that from Minnesota, then I could see them trading one of those picks for one of these receivers and maybe drafting another one in the second and really trying to put some, weapons around whoever they're going to
then
have
who
playing
I was gonna
quarterback.
say who do you have a QB then?
Not maybe they're not really in a position where I put one on the team yet. I'd rather kind of get some pieces landed on the team. They're still not that good in a tougher division where they could struggle and still be a higher pick or sign a veteran later on next year, something like that, where they'd have at least some pieces in place where you have a somewhat competitive roster, and then ideally, you're not setting up another quarterback to fail like Mac Jones.
Yeah. All right. So which rookie running back do you think will perform the best this year, and also in the future, and that can be the same or the same answer or different?
So you're just asking who my favorite prospect for the season is, or is it more like if I have a player that lands on a specific team, you think?
Like I guess who do you think has the most upside, and it can be whatever team.
Um, Personally, I would think the most upside could be Trey Benson or Wright from Tennessee. They're both like a home run hitting, bigger back, where they're going to be, I would say, in a complementary role. But their skill set with their speed and some of their ability with their vision is a little bit more advanced than some of the other people in this draft. And since they are more athletic, there's more upside. So I would prefer one of them. Plus, they're like typical prototypical size for an NFL running back. They're both like 6 foot, 210, 215 pounds.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of like the prototype you want. So I'll take the guys with the higher athletic ceiling and proven, running back skills. They're maybe not as good as like Corum as a pure rusher, but they have more upside, obviously, because unless unless the volume Corum gets somehow is incredibly high, then I don't see him
Right.
having the same ceiling.
Now, do you think that those two guys make a like they play like as soon as the new thing starts, the new season starts, and they make an immediate impact, or do you think they'll need time to develop and such?
A little of both. I think it depends on where they go. If you put right on a team, trying to think right now. If you put
Bengals,
right the Bengals,
Bengals to replace Mixon, maybe?
yeah. I mean, I think Chase Brown kind of does something similar to that because he is very athletic, but I would compare Chase Brown to less of a home run threat, even though he is pretty fast. So yeah, hypothetically, that's a good option, I would say.
Okay. All right. So then between Aaron Jones, Saquon, and Josh Jacobs, who has the higher upside with their new team?
I'm gonna go with Jacobs just because he has the most financial commitment. He is in hypothetically the most consistent offense, and he doesn't have a quarterback vulturing touchdowns from him. Jones is the oldest, but he's also in a situation that has a lot of good offensive pieces, but no one to currently distribute that and lead an offense. And then I'm going to say Hurts, still has 10 touchdowns probably this
Yeah,
season.
he's gonna take a lot of touchdowns. Yeah.
So I would go with Jacobs by process of elimination.
All right. Where is so between the Cardinals and the Chargers, where's the better landing spot for a rookie wide receiver?
This is a good question. So I saw that when Harbaugh was the coach of the Niners, they were first or second in the league in rushing, but they were 30th in the league in passing. And that was with Michael Crabtree as the leading receiver still. And I think they had Vernon Davis, the tight end.
Oh yes.
Also, that could have been partially because of the skill set of Kaepernick, but Kaepernick was a pretty good passer back in the day with the NFL, the way it was set up, and that dual threat ability was enough to keep a defense on their toes where he was, able to throw. I would think the Cardinals because they've shown they have more passing volume and they still don't have a lot of targets either. I mean, Trey McBride is pretty established. And then you have Kyler, who is, I would say, not as good of a passer as Herbert, but the arm talent is pretty close for what he is. So Michael Wilson and McBride are like the only targets on the team that have any value and have any reliable skill at this point. So I think the Cards are probably where it's at. I don't really care what receiver it is. It could even be a second round receiver. Say they went lineman or some other piece in the draft or traded back. Um, you take a second round receiver, they're still going to get a lot of opportunity in that offense. And I guess I'm just kind of thinking the Cardinals would be a better team this upcoming season.
Okay. Do you have a specific guy that you think would would be the best on that team, or you think anybody would succeed?
If it's one of the top three guys, I don't really think it matters. If it goes into the second, third tier receivers in the second or third round, I'd be hoping for more of a receiver that can play the Y or Z because you have Wilson that's able to play the X role right now. I think Wilson is a pretty decent player. So even if they took like Ricky Pearsall or something like that, I think he has a pretty good rookie season where he may get overvalued by the end of the year just based on his opportunity he had this exact season.
Mm. All right, then is Dak leaving Dallas in 2025, do you believe?
Well, Jerry Jones is geriatric and confused, but probably I think I could see him doing it. It's kind of like the same thing they did with Romo. Like how many times can you run this back and have the same result and expect something else to
Yep.
happen?
Yep.
Dak has already hit his ceiling, like that season before he broke his leg or ankle, whatever it was. So I'd say he's kind of hit his peak. He's a very capable starting quarterback in the league, but he is not going to carry your above average roster to a championship. I think you're going to need a good team around him to take him there more so. And they have a good team. It just
I
has
was I
never.
was gonna say what kind of sucks is that they had almost like what a top two, top three defense in the league, and they have all the receivers that they need. They got C.D. Lamb, they got who'd they have last year? Cooks, right?
Yep.
And they
I
got
mean, well, right now that they have, I
Schultz.
think, yeah. Well, they had Schultz.
Well,
Now
they
they got
had Schultz, and now they got Jake Ferguson.
Ferguson. Ferguson's okay. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the offensive line isn't what it used to be. The defense is pretty good. Gallup wasn't the same. Cooks isn't the same player
Yeah,
really
Michael
either, but
Gallup.
he's a good value for what he is. CD's obviously a top player in the league, and they didn't have the same run game they'd had hoped for. So
Yeah, that's
in
true.
that
Yeah.
case, you need Dak to carry the team, and he just isn't the difference maker. I think you'd want to continue building around. He's just going to command too much capital for what he offers compared to someone who's maybe a tier below him but takes a lot less on some kind of deal. Just think of like a Baker Mayfield or a Geno kind of like they're not as good as Dak by any means, but they're close enough where like that there's no difference making ability. It's not like you have Joe Burrow or Allen or something like that under center. You're
Yeah,
like,
right.
three tiers below those guys.
So if he is gone next year, where do you think he goes? What teams are best fits for him?
Well, they're gonna have to send him or he's gonna go to a team that is looking for a capable starter. So he's gonna kind of end up being the next Kirk Cousins, probably. Could see him going to a team like Denver if they don't figure it out this year. Uh, the Raiders.
Maybe if
What if What about the Titans?
Minnesota.
What if Levis doesn't pan out?
Yeah, that could be.
Right. So I think there's some opportunities. He could even say Rogers is like, yeah, I'm done with this shit. Like he's like, just what I'm saying,
Goes to the Jets.
to the Jets, maybe. I don't know.
It seems like everybody wants to go to the East, the AFC East. It's just I don't know. It's like a magnet for quarterbacks.
Right.
Um, so on top of Dak leaving, if they let's say they make the playoffs again, but they don't even win one game, or they win one game, but then that's it. They're one and done. Do you think that they completely clean house with McCarthy and Dak, or maybe just Dak, see if he's the problem?
No, I think Jones is like at this point in his life where I think he just wants to see them like have the chance to win before time's done. So I could see him cleaning the house and like bringing like Bill in next year. That's like his backup plan.
Bill
Like just
Belichick.
bring Bill in, have him have the opportunity to get some kind of quarterback or draft one or whatever he wants, sign a vet. I don't know. But I think that's going to be like the end of
You
the
know,
road for both of them. Like this is
you
just like
know
our last two rounds. See what happens.
that actually might not be like too far off. I wonder if maybe that's why he took off. Maybe he had his eyes on other on other teams, but they're like, okay, well, let's give it one more year, and then if not, then he's gone, and then we'll hire you next year. So
The
who
other thing
knows?
too
Maybe
is
Bill
it's
Belichick in Dallas.
it's a Bill Parcells coaching tree. Bill was underneath Bill at one point, so you're doing the same
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Jerry's bringing his old vet coach, defensive minded, a legend, and that's who was doing well with Romo and Bledsoe for that minute when they had him.
Mhm. All right, we're calling it right here. Championships said it first. Bill Belichick to Dallas 2025.
I'm in.
All right, and then last question. I guess it's kind of not really a question, but so according to Mike Tannenbaum, the Cardinals are going to take J.J. McCarthy at pick 4. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, this guy. Th- if I would have read his mock draft and saw this at pick 4, I'm closing it. It doesn't make sense. If that was the case, Kyler would have been gone. He would have been on the Falcons like he was supposed to
Yeah.
possibly be last year. Talked in trade talks. He'd be on the Patriots. He'd be on. Oh, just think he'd be on the Raiders or the
He
Broncos
would
or
just be
something
on
like that.
any team besides besides the
Yeah,
Cardinals.
he would have been somewhere. So I don't see this happening. I think they set themselves up pretty good this year. Unfortunately, Houston was better than advertised, so their trade doesn't look as good on paper right now as it did last year. But I think they end up probably trading out of that pick, getting a haul, and just continue building this roster. Like you have a franchise quarterback. He hasn't stayed healthy, but he is an elite talent. So I don't know. I'm not necessarily. He's not at the point yet in his career where you're like, this isn't going to work. He's like on the Dak path, where he's still young enough where you have hope. He may not be super elite, but he's just under that when he's playing and focused and not playing Call of Duty. So I'm like, I don't think this is like, why would you want to get the perceived fourth best quarterback? So JJ McCarthy is supposedly the second best quarterback to some teams, the best, the fourth, the fifth, whatever it might be. But why would you take someone who's proven to be good, MVP level talent, a former Heisman winner, who has dual threat ability in today's NFL, to take a guy you've never seen really do anything other than game manage? Like McCarthy has
Mhm.
flashes, but you have a team where you kind of need Kyler to be Kyler because they don't have the pieces yet, and that's why they're building the team
Yeah.
the way they are.
Yeah, I feel like you would only take a quarterback if you didn't plan on him being your franchise quarterback, and I'm pretty sure their GM said earlier in the offseason, or like whenever the last season ended, pretty sure he said he's our guy. We're sticking with him. So yeah,
Yeah,
this guy saying that they're gonna pick McCarthy at pick 4, like I agree. It makes no sense at all.
yeah. Close that draft. This guy's got to. Whatever he's doing, put it down.
Yep. Pretty much. So, all right, that is our episode of Championships podcast for today. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.